What's poppin' and lockin'? It's Blue Blasterbot coming back at you with another story time, and since I've been on a bit of a D&D binge, I figured I'd tell you a story about this game shop I used to go to, and about what has to be the worst player I've ever had to deal with. But it's a funny story nonetheless, so let's get into it. But before we do, please press the like button. Otherwise, and I am in the zone of truth here, you will lose your favorite character to a string of nat 1s, and you'll have to roll up a much lamer one. So press the like button if you want to keep your Dragonborn Cleric or whatever you have. Now, if you don't know, most card game and hobby shops will have tables set up pretty clearly in view so that customers have a place to play, Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Blood Bowl, Warhammer 40k, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, Lorcana, or whatever they're playing. Anyway, I don't even remember what I was in the store for, but by some stroke of luck, I had my DM thing set up and I saw these people in the back waiting for somebody. I go over there, extrovert that I am, and ask what's happening, and this one guy says, "Oh, our DM just hasn't showed up yet." I don't know what clicked in my head at the time, but I decided to run a quick game here, and these guys introduced their characters. We start at level 1 to get things running, and I decided to run Dragon of Icespire Peak because Lost Mines of Phandelver's been done to death. Well, that, and while I can come up with stuff on the fly, I'm much more comfortable with something at least giving me some sort of sense of direction. I guess that's why I spent most of my free time in high school writing Steven Universe fanfic. Dating girls and partying. I'm not lame. Seriously, I'm not lame. Anyway, the party consists of 3 guys, an elven ranger, a tiefling bard, and a human paladin. Now, before I get into this, I just want to say I myself play a human paladin as well, so don't act like I'm discriminating against him when I tell you the rest of the story, alright? Because this guy just makes a mockery of paladins everywhere. I introduced the setting in Phandalin and decided to change the name of the tavern because I myself like punny names to the Merle Inn and tell them about the tavern. And immediately as I say Merle Inn, the paladin goes, "It's supposed to be the Stonehill Inn, get it right." So I already don't have a good feeling about this dude, especially after he opens his gob again after I describe the 3 missions that were on the corkboard behind the shopkeep, and he goes, "Not to worry, for the gods have chosen I, Alexander the Righteous, to lead this quest." Now, that wasn't his actual character's name. I just decided to choose that one because that was actually one of my character's names. Not for D&D, just for one of my stories I'm writing. Anyway, now, if you saw my previous story about Dan, then you know how much I hate people who boast about how great they are, because here's an uncomfortable truth about people who boast about how great they are. They suck. They suck to be around, and they suck to have as friends. I tell Paladin to maybe cool it, and he just scoffs at me. So anyway, they take a quest where they have to explore an abandoned dwarven mining camp. And I have them take a taxi there, being driven by a goblin. Ranger asked his name because his character really likes goblins for whatever reason, and so I decided to throw in a reference and named him Davenport. The Adventure Zone fans are really gonna like that one, I'm sure. So anyway, the fantasy taxi gets attacked by kobolds riding a boar. I have the players roll initiative, and the paladin decides to check the area around during his turn, hiding from the kobolds while the bard and ranger take care of him. I keep suggesting that the paladin try to help, considering paladins, if you don't know, are one of the more tankier classes in D&D, and by that, my paladin has an armor class of 20. But, rather than do anything helpful, he decides to console Davenport, even though he is perfectly fine and safe. He's not hurt, he's not traumatized or nothing. So after this easy fight is over, I have Ranger and Bard roll investigation to see if they find anything, and Paladin immediately goes up and asks, "What about me?" And I tell him, "Who could you loot? You didn't do anything." Now, call me a bad DM all you want, but unless I explicitly say that the enemy is some mean, big Mother Hubbard that should be avoided, I don't reward cowardice at my table. I considered having the cart fall at him as he's ranting about how he's the destined hero, but, I didn't. They make it to the quarry, and immediately players start rolling investigation, and I tell them about this ruined civilization that looks kind of like a Call of Duty map. And for flavor, I decided to say that there's a fantasy Waffle House with a single skeleton at the counter. Bard jokingly tries to seduce it and gets an 11, but unfortunately it falls over to pieces as, they start strumming their guitar. We have a good laugh about it, except for the paladin goes, "There's no fantasy Waffle House. This civilization is hundreds of years old. It's ruined." So he clearly read from the actual book. To which the ranger murmurs to Paladin that he needs to chill the hell out. He then huffs and goes deeper in with the party. Now, normally there's supposed to be like an ochre jelly in the room, but I decided to go with 3 ghouls since I think it would be fun. Paladin rolls his eyes as they roll initiative. He manages to actually fight, and I decided to have the ghouls attack him specifically for the first round, and he gets all pissy about it until I come up with some bullshit excuse saying that these ghouls are, agents of the BBEG sent to stop him. In reality, he's been pissing me off the entire time, and he's been giving paladins like my boy Connor a bad name. So these ghouls manage to scratch his stuff in a little bit, and he's all pouty about it, especially when Ranger and Bard use up their healing potions that they got from the first encounter. Bard offers a potion, which Paladin immediately takes and chugs, but it doesn't heal him completely. He's still bitching when it doesn't heal him all the way, since he was down to like 5 out of 12 hit points. The max he could have gotten was a 6, which, by the way, yeah, he did. So he's at 10 hit points. And so I tell them about the rest of the dungeon, where they discover a room with only a glowing green crystal being held by an evil-looking statue. I straight up tell them that it might not be a good idea to take it, but Paladin does anyway, and Ranger and Bard, immediately as he does this, take cover. I tell him to make a dexterity saving throw, and he does, thankfully, and he rolled fairly high, beating it. But he did wander right into a trap I deadass told him was a trap, and with how much shit he was giving me about how I'm not being accurate or whatever, you would think that he would have known that yes, this was in fact a trap. It is stated in the book. Now, I don't know what he was thinking. So, he gets the save, right? And instead of rolling 2d10 for damage, or just straight up saying he takes 22 damage on a successful save, I decided to roll 2d4 instead. But that wasn't enough for Mr. Pissy Paladin, because he starts going into hysterics, saying I'm ruining his story because he's supposed to be the all-powerful chosen one. And, by the way, if you pick up D&D just to metagame or indulge in stupid power fantasies, just write your story in a notebook or something, or put it up on Wattpad. Don't force a DM, much less other players, to bear witness to your god-awful power fantasies. But I digress. So Paladin's pissed, and I'm getting annoyed because it's getting late already, and the game shop is about to close, and the dude has the audacity to claim that I'm the bad DM because he said the crystal was supposed to aid him on his journey, like this is some bad Final Fantasy fanfiction, when he knew from the jump, with how much shit he was giving me about how inaccurate I was being to the book, that it was in fact a trap. You can read all about how it's a trap on page 23 of the Dragon of Icespire Peak Adventure module under the section E11, Hall of Greed. So I think it's just about to be the end of it. He'll just keep bitching, and I'll just pack up my stuff and leave because, again, it was getting late, it was getting dark out. But no, Paladin doesn't do that. Instead, he picks up his mini and throws it at me, but for some reason the dude had like an accuracy of a stormtrooper, even though he was like, 5 feet away from me at worst. So he hits the DM screen, and it somehow this cardboard broke the sword off of his mini, and he starts throwing even more of a baby fit. Now this wasn't like a little kid, no, this was like a 35-year-old, as I would later find out. He starts pitching the biggest baby fit I have ever seen out of a grown man who is legally able to drive and vote and probably even run for president. So I've had enough of this. Even though Bard and Ranger were pretty chill, they were pretty cool, I would definitely play with them again. Paladin just ruined it for me. Thankfully, the manager came around and actually broke everything up before I left, and thankfully, the guy who played the Paladin is just never coming back again. So, thank you, manager. A1, you are an amazing job. Would definitely come to the store again. All in all, to whoever played the Paladin in that campaign, but to anybody else who ever tries to make their character the quote-unquote chosen one, go fuck yourself, dude. Ain't nobody wanting to see that shit. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more story times. I would really like to try out more D&D stories in the future. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. God bless.